Here's a fun little project that I'm working on this weekend, and we have these cabinets here, and the corner piece has a lot of dead space in there. The way the cabinet used to be, there was a side here, cabinet wall, and so all that space was just dead space. There was nothing in there. It would close up like this with a corner piece, and you could not access it. So we decided to purchase Lazy Susan shelves, and they're made by Rev-A-Shelf 32-inch half moon Lazy Susan. And these are long shelves, and the way they work is they slide in and turn, and this way they'll hide and you can close the door. So when I started to taking everything apart and trying to put these shelves on, it came out that we don't have anything for the bracket to bite in on one side, because there's a 6-inch drop off in there. So I figured, well, let's put a plywood floor in there, and the way to do it, I figured that, well, I'll put a frame inside and then I'll put some plywood on top of that, kind of like a floor frame. The hardest part was figuring out the way to actually frame everything, because I wanted to support this side of the cabinet because it got some water damage and bowing out. So I wanted to really support that so it doesn't fall out on us. These cabinets are kind of cheap, and they've been falling apart. And also there's a corner here, so it's not just a square. There's a corner that I have to account for. So what I've done is I kind of came up with a rough frame, and I calculated how much I needed, and I figured that I need about 10 foot long 2x6. So I got a 12 foot long 2x6 just in case, if I mess something up, and I did mess up a little bit at first, on the first cut actually. So I'm glad I got the 12 footer. I do have about a foot left after all the cutting. So the only tools I needed is a power drill, a pry bar to get out that wall of the cabinet, the side of the cabinet, and that circular saw to cut the 2x6 and plywood. I mean, you could, in a pinch, you could just use a handsaw, but obviously it's a little faster, so I spent the money and bought it. It's only about like $70, and we'll see how it turns out. So here's the frame. That's how it's gonna look like inside the cabinet once I put it in. It's a little too big to put in assembled, so I'm just gonna assemble it piece by piece inside the cabinet. This is where the corner is gonna go. One door is gonna be here, the other door is here, and the corner is over there. And I'm gonna use these angle brackets to assemble it. So something like this, and just tack it with short screws. And I probably won't even attach it to the walls, because there's really no need. This is really, I mean, it's not going to support anything. I'm really overdoing it for the intended purpose of this, but I figured 2x6s fit in there just perfectly, so I'll just use those. And it's fairly easy to set it all up and assemble it. So we'll see how it goes once I get it in there. And this is what I'm using to seal the wood. Spar urethane for indoor outdoor, and this is really for water repellents more than for water resistance, just in case if some water gets in that side of the cabinet. We do live in South Florida here, so flooding is always a possibility, but I doubt that we'll save it from flooding. Anyway, so here's the pieces of all the pieces of the frame and the 2 sheets of plywood. And I'll give it another hour here and turn them over and spray the other side, and should be good to go. Well, I just put a second coat of the sealer on all the lumber. I'll give it a couple hours to dry out and see if it smells after that. I might give it a full day to probably dry out in the garage. I just don't want the house to stink up because it's got a pretty strong smell. I tried to remove the stickers, but it was a pain in the butt, so I just left them on as is. Since this is gonna be the bottom, you will not be able to see it. So, well, we'll give it some time to dry out and see how we go from here. And I just started putting the frame together inside the cabinet. I attached these two boards to the walls just to have it a little more secure, which is really an overkill from this project. But it's coming together nicely. And here's the finished frame of this project. You can see the braces and the corner braces over there. I think I only used 4 of them. One in here, one over there, one over here, and then one in that corner. Over here I kind of just butt joined the lumber, but I guess I miscalculated the length of that little piece over there. It's a little short, but worked out just fine. And it's really sturdy. It's definitely an overkill for what I'm doing, but better to have it sturdier than have it fall apart. So to secure the plywood in place, I decided to just try and glue it using this Tide Bond 2 wood glue. It's supposed to be water resistant, so we'll see how that works. If it doesn't hold, I'll try to screw it in with small screws. I guess the best would be to use brad nails, but I don't have a brad nailer, so I guess this will have to do. We'll see how this works out. Here's the floor, almost finished. I glued the 2x2 piece of plywood down. It's holding up pretty good, so I think I'm just gonna leave it glued only. I'm not gonna put any screws or nails into it. And then I'm gluing the remaining pieces of plywood that I had to cut up to fill the holes. And it's looking really good. I might put a piece of plywood in this wall to cover this remains of the glue that dripped down when they glued the countertop, the granite countertop. But it's looking pretty good, so I think it's coming along really, really nicely. And there's the bottom of the cabinet all finished up. I stuck a piece of the leftover plywood on that ugly wall, so when you open the door of the cabinet, you don't see that ugly wall. And here's the remaining pieces that I glued in. There are some gaps in there, but I don't really care about them because you're not going to see them once everything is closed up and I install the Lazy Susan shelves. But yeah, there's quite a bit of gap, but I figured not to mess with it since you're not going to be able to see it anyway. And here's the finished floor. Onto the shelf installation now. The installation of the Lazy Susan shelves is pretty straightforward. I just taped this template that they provide to the side of the cabinet to find all the holes, pre-drill the holes with a small bit, and install these mounting brackets. Here's the instructions, and it's fairly straightforward. Well, let's finish this up. So here's both brackets installed and the rod that's supporting the shelves installed. That's what it looks like. And then you install the shelves and tighten up these set screws so the rod doesn't move. And it's fairly simple install. And there's one of the shelves that's going to just slide on top of the rod, and then another shelf goes here. And here's how the finished product looks like. 2 Lazy Susan shelves in the dead space of that cabinet. The way these work is slide them in and swing in. Slide it in and swing it in. Close the cabinet, and this is it.